We're the Fly Over Yogis, a group of Midwest friends sharing practical, everyday approaches to yoga, wellness, lifestyle,
and everything in between as we live through them ourselves, yoga on and off the mat.
We are Lindsay, Jeana,
Jordan,
and Megan. We work to create authenticity in everything we do.
And we're sharing our experiences with others to inspire mindful living, no matter your home state. Welcome to the Fly Over Yogis Podcast. On today's episode, we'd like to introduce a little bit about ourselves, about our podcast, and what some of our topics are going to be, and of course, why it is that the four of us connected and how we got here today. For me, this started as a passion project. This was a creative outlet that has been on my bucket list for a while. I'm a bullet journaler and I have a bucket list page, and podcast was on there. So as a yoga teacher, it seemed natural to combine those two outlets, those two things for me. And I am really passionate about teaching yoga and living a lifestyle that has to do with the different philosophies, which we'll talk about how it is that we got into this when we talk a little bit about ourselves. But the basis of this podcast is going to be centered around yoga on and off the mat. We want to discuss not only the physical practice of yoga, but also the mindset and the philosophies that surround yoga, and specifically how we can use them in a really practical, everyday way. When I approached the group about the project, we all got so excited and it just took off. I feel like within a week, we had made a plan to get this going. We had ideas, we had some prompts, and it just took off a lot more quickly than I had ever expected, which is super exciting. And we brainstormed, and here we are. So we are currently recording in Wichita, Kansas, which is pretty close to smack dab in the middle of the United States. And we are all very much Midwesterners, born and bred. What is that phrase? Cornbread and fed, or something. Cornbread and fed. Maybe I'm making that up. I don't know. Cornbread, fed, and bread. I don't know. Okay, so maybe just not that. So we have also this really Midwestern mindset to where everything that we do has an aspect of practicality about it. And I think that we are typically, as a group of people in a region, skeptical or can be skeptical in nature. And we really wanted to communicate in this podcast how to make these concepts really applicable and approachable for people who are just like us, and how you can use these tools to improve your health and your life, your mind, body, and soul. So many people are skeptical, just as we, and specifically even I, started out. And maybe even just curious about how they can use some of these different things to improve their lives. And some things that we include may really surprise you. I know that they've surprised me in my journey through yoga, and all it takes is an open mind and curiosity. And we'd like to bring these concepts to you to help you improve your life, just like they have helped to improve ours. So we're going to introduce a little bit about each of us and who we are, what we do for a quote-unquote living in addition to this passion project, and some other little things, about ourselves. I'm Lindsay. I live in Wichita, where I teach high school English at a nearby high school. I'm originally from Carthage, Missouri, which neighbors Kansas. I am an avid reader. I'm very naturally a curious person. I loved being in college. I loved school, and this is just an extension of that love for learning. I am a super active person. I love to be outside. I love springtime and summer, which, that's currently the season we're in. I feel like I'm very connected to this energy of being outdoors. And in addition to that, I kickbox and I teach yoga in the area at a few different studios and spaces. I also coach my high school girls swim team and sponsor our yoga club, which has 50 plus members.
Which is amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so great.
So it's cool. And Jeana has been to help me with a workshop that we did out there. It was great. And I came to yoga originally for a physical practice. I was looking for the workout, the stretching, the difficulty in the poses. I was looking for something different to mix it up. And I came from a gymnastics background where it was obviously like the flexibility and the power movements and whatever, but really it's not the same as yoga. Maybe, you do the splits and a handstand, but that's about it. So, I specifically started doing yoga in my living room. I was watching YouTube videos and I got really attached to Yoga with Adrienne's online content. She's so great.
I think everyone has a point where they get attached with yoga with Adrienne.
She's so amazing. And, another kind of sort of Midwesterner. She's from Austin, Texas. So very much kind of our tribe of people, our mindset. She's super cool. So check her videos out if you're just kind of starting a practice or need some home practice stuff. So I wanted to bring yoga to everyone, and I wanted it to help people the way that it had begun to help me, which is how I got involved with my yoga teacher training, which is ultimately how all four of us met. And I really wanted to help specifically teen athletes, which I don't do a lot of, actually, now that I've finished yoga teacher training. I obviously work at a high school and I coach athletes. However, it's not necessarily what I thought it was going to be when I started, which is okay. And I had no idea the different rabbit holes that you can get into with yoga philosophy. Like I said, I came to it specifically for a physical practice, to bring a physical practice to others. And beyond the physical, I thought, it can help mindset and things, but I didn't even know all of the other things about it. So I have just fallen head over heels in love with yoga and how it's able to help me take care of myself and to just improve those different aspects of my life. So here we are today. It's a little bit about me. So who's next?
Get it, Jeana.
Apparently I am next. I currently own a traveling yoga studio that's based out of Hutchinson, Kansas, which is about an hour. It's roughly an hour away from Wichita, which is where, like Lindsay said, we're recording. I was born and raised in Hutch. It's my hometown. It's not everyone's favorite city, but it's certainly one of mine. And I, like I said, own a traveling yoga studio where I go to several different local businesses and teach yoga and give back to the community. There is a small yoga community in Hutchinson. It's a small city, only about 46,000 people, I think, is the last census we had of our population. So it's not a huge city by any means, but the more I teach, the more I realize that there are quite a few people who are interested in yoga. And much like Lindsay said, I again started yoga when I was pregnant with my daughter. For the physical side, my midwives told me that I needed to stop running, I needed to stop lifting, and I needed to stop doing basically anything that was heavy impact, and they recommended yoga. And I had done yoga once or twice in high school, a little bit in college, but I was never consistent. It was never something that I was very interested in because I thought it was just stretching. It wasn't going to be a challenge for me. It wasn't going to be athletic enough for me. I've been an athlete my entire life, so why would I be interested in yoga? Now as a yoga teacher, I realize how naive I was.
We all do.
Yeah, we all do. And I think that's, we all come, I can't say we all, because there are people who come to yoga for a handful of different reasons, but I feel like I can speak for the group that a lot of us came for the physical postures, for that stretching aspect, for the health aspect, and not so much for the yoga philosophy. And I came because I was pregnant and I needed to relieve some of my stress, and I couldn't run, I couldn't lift, so what else was I supposed to do? And I also remember doing yoga with Adrienne in my living room in my pajamas, and Bryce, my husband, coming home and being like, what in the world are you doing? And just ignoring him and continuing. But I did yoga with Adrienne and a couple other YouTubers here and there, and I bought some books for, pregnancy yoga and prenatal and postnatal yoga, and I really just delved into kind of the world of getting to know my body as it was growing a human inside of it, which is crazy. And then we unexpectedly had my daughter 2 months early via emergency C-section, which was terrifying. She's a happy, blessed, beautiful 2-year-old now, so all is well and turned out well. But after having her, I am this new mom with this kind of new body per se. I wasn't expecting a C-section whatsoever. I was going to do an all-natural childbirth at a midwifery home, so that was not in the plans. And I don't want to say it was a quarter-life crisis, but it was probably damn near it, because I kind of looked at this, 3-pound, 11-ounce little person that was the size of a doll, and I kind of thought, what in the hell am I doing? What have I done with my life? I have this human that I'm supposed to raise and take care of, and can I even take care of myself? You have that, I think, as moms, we have that moment where we're like, what did we just do? What have I done? And after having the C-section, I was released from the hospital 4 days later, but of course she was such a small baby that she had to stay in the NICU and in the hospital. So I went home and Bryce went to work, and so there was a lot of days where I was home by myself, like 24/7, and I got very heavy into postpartum depression, and I had a couple family members who were like, hey, I think you maybe need to look into this, and I was like, I'm fine. No, that's not it. And I was very much so in the stage of denial. And I remember just having an awful day and just turning on the TV and going to YouTube and doing a yoga practice, and I was so frustrated because my body was so different, and I couldn't do half the twists, and I couldn't fold, and I've always been able to touch my toes, and I was like touching my knees, and I wanted to give up. I was like, forget it. I'm not going to be that athlete anymore. I'm not going to do yoga anymore. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to be that woman that gains 400 pounds eating Oreos on her couch, staring at my fish tank. I mean, I was melodramatic back in the day. But my cousin Charlene came to my house. She picked me up off my couch and said, you are getting off your ass and you're going to yoga with me. And I was very stubborn, hello Midwestern mindset about it. And she took me to the studio, which is a hot vinyasa-styled studio where all of us did our yoga teacher training. And I hated my first class. And I didn't hate it because of the teacher, and I didn't hate it because of the heat, and I probably didn't even hate it because of the atmosphere, because none of that mattered at the time, which you think is the things that would matter. I hated it because I was so frustrated with my body and this mindset. I was in a very negative mindset where I didn't have a lot of gratitude for my own life. And that's something that just makes me want to shimmy now. It's such an awful thought process. But I went home and I cried and I was very upset, and I went back because I thought, okay, is it just me or is it the yoga? Do I really just not like yoga? Is yoga really not my thing? Or is it just because I'm in the state of being that I'm in right now? And about 3 or 4 classes later, I'm lying in Shavasana, which is just the most amazing pose in most yoga practices. You end in Shavasana, which is corpse pose, and you're laying flat on your mat and your palms are faced up, and it's pure bliss. It's just wonderful. And I remember just crying, uncontrollably crying. And I sat there, laid there, just thinking, stop crying. Why are you crying? Stop. The yoga instructor is going to come around. She's going to place that cold towel on your head, and she's going to see that you're crying, and she's going to think you're ridiculous. Knock it off. I had this whole discussion in my mind where I was like, why am I crying? And I think we're so conditioned to not show emotion in public that I just wanted to stifle it, and I wanted to bring it back in. But I needed that release, and it was the same release I had when I was spending all those days after I was released from the hospital home alone, and then I finally got back on my mat, and I got over the fact that I couldn't do a lot of forward folds, that I couldn't touch my toes, that I couldn't do these things. And for me, yoga was an emotional thing for a very long time. Probably the first 3 months that I really went to a yoga studio, it wasn't a physical practice so much as an emotional practice for me, which shocked the hell out of me. I was very much so, like I said, an athlete, so I figured that physical challenging practice is going to be where it's at, and it turned into a very emotional practice. So when one of the instructors mentioned, hey, we're doing a yoga teacher training, I think you would really benefit from it, because you are so emotional with the practice and everything, I was like, okay, we're going to do this. Let's do this. And I went home and I told my husband Bryce, and we went down to Georgia to visit his grandparents. And I remember laying at 2 o'clock in the morning in their guest bedroom on the floor enrolling in yoga teacher training. And right after I enrolled, I was like, what have I done? This is terrifying. But it is hands down the best decision I've ever made for myself in my entire life. Because I met you beautiful people, and now I am, like I said, I own my own traveling yoga studio. And it's brought this huge sense of community that I didn't realize I was missing, and I didn't realize that I needed until I got there. It's one of those things you don't realize it until you arrive. And then once you arrive, you're like, damn, I needed this.
Yep.
And so I do that, and that's kind of my story about how I came to yoga. Why I continue doing yoga is because of the community. You have these empowering, uplifting, just grateful people who practice yoga. And we're not all hippies. We're not all crazy. We're from every walk of life. And I think that's such a beautiful thing that we can all come together and we're breathing and we're moving as one. And that's a little emotional for me to say. But that's why I keep doing yoga. And yoga has sparked me to start a nonprofit chapter here of a nonprofit called Happy Period. They're #Happy Period if you find them on Facebook or Instagram or just wherever. And they're a nonprofit organization that gives back to those in need who otherwise would go without menstrual care, which is something that a lot of people don't really think about. Homeless shelters, any domestic violence shelters, just anywhere that these homeless women or girls are at, or even it doesn't have to be homeless. It can be low poverty, it can be schools, it can be church organizations, it can be anybody who is just struggling to find menstrual care. It's something that's taboo in our society, and it shouldn't be. It's a natural process. We all do it once a month, but it's not talked about and it's shied away from. And so the women who actually need help aren't getting help because it's a taboo subject. And yoga sparked me because it is so community driven to do something to give back to the community. So that's me giving back to the community by starting the Happy Period Southern Kansas chapter that I run as the chapter ambassador. And the other thing that I kind of do in my life in connection to kind of yoga is when I first started doing yoga, like I mentioned, I was pregnant and then I had a C-section and nothing fit me. And I was very frustrated with that. I've always had a very positive body image. And I ran across this company that's ran by two very empowering moms and women in California. And it's a company called Salty Honey. And they're just a clothing company. That's all they were. And I ordered a pair of pants and a bra from them, and it fit really well, and they stretched really well, and then I just kept ordering, and if you look on their Instagram, it's not picture-perfect models, which if you are a picture-perfect model, kudos to you, because I don't have that, but they're real women wearing real things, and so their kind of hashtag for their brand is Real Women Wear Salty Honey, and it's not like, oh, you're not a real woman if you don't wear their brand, but they have a zero Photoshop policy. That they don't Photoshop women. They have women of all sizes. And just recently, I was selected as an ambassador for them. So I also do that as well. And I'm just very grateful to be part of this community of Fly Over Yogis, which is empowering, uplifting, beautiful women. And then the Salty Honey brand, which just, it's so interesting how I've connected through like a clothing brand of all things to these women who are just badass all over the country. And I'm like, you do you, boo. And of course, just giving back to women in need through the Southern Kansas Happy Period chapter. So yeah, that's pretty much my life and what I do. Little Rabbit Apothecary, my traveling yoga studio, is my full-time job. I would not have said that a year and a half ago. I was a barista a year ago, so that is not something that was in the plans. None of this was in the plans. And I think that's a beautiful thing of life is that sometimes you have to walk away from your plans and figure out what the universe has in store for you and kind of just say, screw it all and just listen. So that's me. That's Jeana. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeana.
All right, I'll go next. As we all turn to decide what order we want to go in. So my name is Megan, and I first came to yoga. I mean, I'd done like a couple classes or just like things like either yoga videos or just yoga practices, I guess, sporadically. But I really started doing yoga more regularly in college. I wanted a way to stay active. Again, the physical aspect of it, just more for the workout. But lifting weights or cardio or things like that sounded miserable in college to me. I was like, no. Plus, like, the stress relief aspect of yoga is super nice for me. So I found at the college I went to K-State, the rec had a Rise and Shine yoga class, so it fit my early bird tendencies. And so I was able to go. So I was able to go to class in the morning, or yoga class in the morning to start off my day, and then like go do class homework, like work, things like that after that. And I really started to enjoy the practice behind it and just the different flow of the postures and everything else. And so then after college, I continued at a gym here in town, going to yoga classes and everything else, and then eventually stumbled upon the studio that we all got our training at, and I never thought I would be a hot yoga person, actually. I was like, ew, sweaty. But, like...
Why would anyone want to sweat for an hour?
Exactly. But, like, I tried a class, I was like, oh, don't knock it till you try it. And I tried a class, it's like, oh, I love this. And so, continued going to that studio some, and then I decided to start teacher training. So when I signed up for teacher training, that was just one of those, like... It's interesting to think about, I guess, because it's like, oh, what exactly? I don't think I could pinpoint exactly what it is that made me sign up for it.
Like, what? You couldn't pinpoint the catalyst. It was like, this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah, I don't really think there was just, like, one specific thing for me. It was mostly just, like, I thought about it for a while, and it was like, no, I think this is something I want to do. I think this is something for me, and this is something that I think would really help me. And initially, I started it off for just the personal growth and the deepening my personal practice and everything else. And so then I met you lovely ladies. And then at the end of, or as we got partway through teacher training, I kind of started realizing, like, this is something, like, more than I thought it was. There's so much more depth to it. There's so much more, it felt so real to me. It felt so grounded, I guess, in a sense. And I was like, this is something that I want to be able to share with other people. And I want to show other people a yoga practice and, like, what it means to go through a yoga practice. And so I decided that I did want to teach. So upon finishing teacher training, I started teaching at a local studio here in town called Limitless. So I teach there early in the morning to, again, fit my early morning tendencies.
Easy.
And so I teach there, and I also teach at a bar studio. They do yoga at the bar. That's Barre. Clever. Though I wouldn't be opposed to doing yoga at the other bar either.
Not at all.
And so I've kind of just developed a practice through teaching there, and I'm able to share my practice with others and bring people to yoga who've maybe never done it before. And I really enjoy it, and it's just really brought me a lot of joy and a lot of fulfillment in ways that I didn't think it would. So I'm very grateful to have that practice in my life, and very grateful to be expanding that yoga knowledge and being able to share even in more ways through this podcast, and to be able to take this podcast to reach even more people who maybe don't live here, can't attend classes or things like that, to be able to just really continue to share that. Because like Jeana said, like, yoga is about that union, that community. And so to be able to, like, share your knowledge or share your experiences is just really, it's just a really great way to maintain that community and to really build it up. So I'm really excited about this project. Outside of yoga, I have a degree in food science, and so I work at a spice company here in town, and we make spice and seasoning blends for the food industry across the nation. So I work within R&D, which is research and development, so I help to create the seasonings. So I'm the mastermind. Not actually, but I kind of am.
Claim it.
But so during the day, my 8 to 5, I make spices. I eat a lot of food.
Megan has her dream job.
I love my job. It's a ton of fun for me. It really, like, sparks a creativity side, and I really enjoy it. I also, like all of us here, I believe, I enjoy reading. I love to just continue that learning and to just lose myself in a fiction book, or, like, read or learn through somebody else, like through a biography or something like that. I love to be outside. I love to listen to music. I love to just, like, have a jam session in the kitchen and sing and dance and, like, carry on like a crazy person. But really, I'm noticing, like, the things that I'm attracted to the most are just things that make me feel alive, and things that make me feel like I can enjoy this human experience, like, to the best, like, to the fullest.
Preach. Yes.
So I'm reaching more toward more of those things. But yeah, so that's me.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah, thanks, Megan.
Okay, so my name is Jordan, and it's funny because when I first really got into yoga, I mean, I did it, you know, I went to a couple classes at the YMCA, you know, like, just not a regular practice by any means. I think I actually did have a DVD that I would listen to, or not just listen to, I'd actually do it in my dorm room at college. And so I actually still remember my very first Shavasana because it was in my dorm room. It was the first one I was laying there like, what is this magic? And it was all by myself, so that was kind of cool. And but anyway, and so when I really got into yoga was actually at a yoga and beer event because I love beer and just alcohol in general, specifically beer and wine. So I went to this event and I didn't know what I was doing, and so I ended up being next to a co-owner of the studio that I would then go on to do my yoga teacher training in. Of course, I didn't know at the time, and so she kept trying to get me to do all these poses and all of these challenging arm balances and stuff. I'm like, lady, what are you doing? I cannot do that. And but it was a really just great and fun hour, and it was kind of like, it took some of the stigma around yoga away. Like, it doesn't have to be super serious. It doesn't have to be like everyone's on their own mat. Like, it's challenging and it's fun and it's exciting, and there's so many different other ways to think about yoga. Not that the slower paced yoga or the more mindful yoga is any less important, because it's all very valid, but it was really cool to be introduced to that new side of it. So I started going to that studio regularly, and then more and more regularly until I was there almost every single day. And so then I decided I want to go through yoga teacher training. But as anyone who's listening to this who has been through it knows, that it is definitely an investment. So one of my values in life is to have experiences over things. Mm-hmm. And so especially when it comes to like my birthday and Christmas or whatever, anytime someone's like buying me a gift, I prefer experiences. So like tickets to go see a movie together, or a gift card to a flight so I can go travel somewhere. So for Christmas, the year before I started yoga teacher training, I was like, more than anything, it would mean the world to me if gifts would be given to me in the form of monetary value, so that I can then use that money to purchase my yoga teacher training. And so my family was amazing and helped me out a lot, and so that's how I was able to actually end up getting to do it. And as I think Jeana and maybe Lindsay mentioned, like, it is by far the best investment I've ever made. I am still so thankful to this day that I went to yoga teacher training because of the community that Jeana talked about. And also just, I learned so much about myself in the process. Yes. Because yoga brings about so much self-reflection. And fortunately, I had been on a process or journey, whatever words you want to use there, of self-enlightenment, self-love, personal development, all of that stuff the past couple, probably about like 4 years now. So I always say I'm like 100% different person than I was in high school. I'm just more and more myself, which is pretty awesome. So as far as teaching yoga, I work remotely, so I work at a co-working space and I teach yoga in that space, and getting more outside the realm of yoga, even though yoga is on and off the mat like we talk about. So I bring it into every aspect of my life. But as far as other areas of my life, I am married to my best friend in the entire world. We've been married since my gosh, it'll be almost 6 years this year. Wow. I know. Mm-hmm. We've actually been together since high school, so high school sweethearts and all that. Mm-hmm. We have a fur baby named Penelope. She is the love of my entire life. My husband knows that, so it's totally okay. And currently our big project that we're working on is we are actually converting a school bus into a tiny house. #millennials.
But it's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's so much work, but it's been so rewarding because, we're literally building it with our hands, which is pretty cool. And so as we're going through this conversion process, our goal is to then have it so that we can travel full-time in our tiny house. And because some other values of mine are sustainability and minimalism, and just, again, that experiences over stuff thing. So not letting all of the stuff that we own get in the way of all the traveling that we want to do, all the experiences that we want to have. So let's see, what else do I have about me? Oh, as far as sustainability, also, we are gardeners, so in the bus that will be a little bit more difficult, but we are making, plans to have like little herb gardens on our dashboard, and it's so weird to say that, but yeah, so
it'll all work out, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It'll just be a little different than what we're used to. We do actually also have a vineyard that we're growing here in Kansas. It's only 56 vines, so it's a little teeny tiny love project that we're doing, but it was kind of cliche, but we went to Napa a couple years ago, and we're like, we should totally grow a vineyard, so we did. And so that's kind of like our lifelong, eventual dream in life, is that we own a vineyard together, one that we actually make money off of. As far as what I do, my 8 to 5 job is my dream job. I am grateful every day for what I do for a living, because there was definitely a time in my life when I didn't get to do what I loved. And so having this job and working with people that I love doing. Oh, I should probably say what I do. So what I do is I do digital marketing for iPet Coaching, which is a certification school for life coaches. And I am managing editor for oneideaaway.com, which is a publishing platform for mindful, intentional living. So we do articles and podcasts, and we promote the coaches that graduated from our school as the thought leaders of today. And so it's all very high thinking, big, broad visions, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing that I get to do. And so they are actually based out of New Jersey. So being in Kansas, I work remote at that co-working space that I mentioned earlier. And that's where I teach yoga. One last thing that I definitely want to mention is that Harry Potter is basically my life. So I don't mean that sarcastically. It is my thing. I had someone ask me, because we were like getting to know each other, so we were asking questions back and forth. And he said, "What's one thing that you're a huge nerd about?" I was like, "Harry Potter." And that seems like a really obvious answer, except that like I meet someone, they're like, "Oh, I love Harry Potter too." I'm like, "Yeah, but I love."
How many Harry Potter tattoos do you have, Jordan?
I have. How many do I have now? I have 4. You can look on the website, I guess, to see them. So Luna Lovegood is my hero. She is Ravenclaw, as am I. # with Beyond Measure. And I use hashtags a lot in my everyday conversation. It's fine. But Luna is like 100% herself all of the time. She is so compassionate and loving towards everyone. And that's also we share the same Myers-Briggs personality type. So also another thing I'm really interested in is personality things. That's something we should do for an episode.
We should do that for an episode. Yes.
Discuss personality stuff like that, because I all think they're fascinating, including when y'all need to make sure we know what Hogwarts house we're in. I'm Ravenclaw, obviously.
I'm a Slytherin.
Oh, interesting.
Me too.
Yeah.
Really? Oh,
I'm
yeah.
also Ravenclaw.
Oh, so we have 2 Ravenclaws, 2 Slytherins.
So interesting. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. Also, glad that, not that, there's
We literally just geeked out.
Nothing against Gryffindor, but that's always like the go-to, I think. Mm-hmm. So that's cool that we don't have a single Gryffindor.
And I think that if you read the books, we're going to go down a rabbit hole real quick. If you read the books, I mean, if you only watch the movies, which we still love you, but listen, read the books. If you only watch the movies, a lot of light is just on Gryffindor. Like
That's
lot.
Very
like
true.
99%.
Yeah.
You hear the other houses, they're there, but you don't, unless you read the books, you don't understand. Mm-hmm. And so please read the books if you haven't. And for those of you who have read the books, you know. So yeah, I think that is kind of like the go-to that people get, like Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff, and they're like, "Oh, I got the boring house." And I'm like, you didn't read the books.
But it's so fascinating, especially if you are someone that has done other personality types and everything. When you start researching them, you're like, it's so true.
It's accurate.
Yes.
I always find that information fascinating. Like I'm a lifelong learner. I'm an information junkie. I just love to collect information and knowledge and learn how to share it, like how we're doing.
This
in the
is why we're
podcast.
friends.
I know.
Yeah, this is why we all are friends.
I almost said a hashtag again. I was like, maybe I should start with a hashtag. But like I said, I do digital marketing for a living, so that's
there's
how
that.
my mind works.
It's in your blood.
It
is.
Yeah.
So
that's a little bit about me.
yeah, thanks, Jordan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jordan, you just kind of brought this up too, or actually it was Megan sort of segueing off of Jordan, but this is why we're friends.
This is why we're friends.
Yeah.
I did that on
Excellent
purpose.
segue.
Yeah. So why us? Why us for? What attracted us to each other? We've pondered this question a lot, and I don't know that there's one particular answer that we can pinpoint. Obviously, from listening to our responses, we are very much different, and also we share some similarities as well. All of us, I think I would consider all of us creative in our own different ways. Generous, giving people, and being yoga teachers. It is something that takes a lot from you mentally and emotionally. You are giving something, a part of yourself, during that teaching, and it is not our own workout. So I think that naturally is a part of who the 4 of us are. and what drew us to each other, that community. So what are some other things? Why us, and what excited you guys about this friend group or this podcast?
I think that's an excellent question because, as you all have probably gathered by now, like Lindsay said, we're all very different people. We live very different lives, and we're all very, very busy. We're all extremely busy people. And I noticed one thing during yoga teacher training, for those of you who have or have not been through yoga teacher training, there's a billion different yoga teacher trainings out there. There's a million different types of yoga. Each one is unique in their own, depending on the studio, depending on what type you take. So we took this hot training that's a vinyasa styled, and I really enjoyed our training because we delved into a couple different styles of yoga and a couple different things. And every Friday night, basically, we would meet every other week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we would meet Friday night and then 12 to 5 Saturday and Sunday. And this was a 6-month thing. This was a 6-month spiel for us, and it was intense. You think about spending half a year with these people, you're gonna get to know them. And there was 19 total, including us 4 in our yoga teacher training. And so you have 19 people, and of course people are just naturally gonna click. It's not that I think any of us didn't get along with anybody in our yoga teacher training or anything like that. I know I can say going into our first night of yoga teacher training, I was very nervous. I don't even know why I was nervous. I was just like, oh, there's all these new people. And I think the reason why is because I'm meeting these people who I'm going to spend a huge amount of my time with for the next 6 months. And I remember being in the studio after the 1-hour practice, and we were introducing ourselves, and I just felt this huge wave of positivity in the room. We were all just so positive and genuine, and we all wanted to be there because we wanted to learn, and we cared. And, you know, we all had a driving force. It's not like, oh yeah, I just signed up to do yoga teacher training because I thought it was cool. I mean, if you did that, then that's great for you. But I felt like, yeah, it is cool. I felt like everyone in our yoga teacher training came with a purpose. Even if that purpose wasn't how they ended training or wasn't the outcome of training, or, you know, whatever it may be, we all came with some sort of drive, some sort of purpose. And I think even all of our purposes were a little different. But during these discussions every Friday night, I don't know if it was just divine intervention or whatever you want to call it, but we always seemed, there was a mix, a smorgasbord of the 4 of us in a group. It was like there's always 2 of us or 3 of us or all 4 of us were in a group. And so we're talking and we're learning about these other people in our trainings, and we're spending all this time with them. And I had noticed about, I would say halfway through, about 3 months into our training, I was like, you know, I'm in a group with Megan and Jordan and Lindsay a lot, and I really resonate with what they say, and I like their vibes. I think we're going to be friends.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
Manifesting. And I feel like we've talked about this just in our daily conversations with each other, that as an adult, I feel like it's impossible to make friends. It's really difficult. It's not like grade school where you can just walk up to somebody and be like, you sit in the desk next to me. I will share my crowns with you. We're going to be friends. It is not like that in adulthood. I find it so much harder to make friends in my adult life. And I think Jordan had said this in a conversation we were just having the other day, that maybe when we're adults, or as we are adults, that we seek more meaningful relationships. And I feel like not necessarily that you have to give something into a friendship, but I feel like I did get something out of being friends with all of you. I did get something from talking with all of you and interacting with all of you, to the point where I was like, I want to spend more time with these people outside of yoga teacher training. And for me, I was like, okay, let's be friends.
Yeah. I feel like you guys are authentic people that I can count on, and that's something that is a philosophy of yoga, is authenticity and speaking your truth. And I feel like I can count on the 3 of you. In addition, there were some others, you know, too, in our yoga teacher training, but that really, for me, I think is what helped me to click, is that I don't often find a lot of people who are truthful. You know, there's a lot of people who, even as adults, are very gossipy and not talking about others in a way that is productive, constructive, or helpful. And I felt like everything that all the discussions that I have with you guys are about, like, if we're talking about other people, it is because we are concerned for them, or because like we're trying to figure out like what it is that's going on, or like how to maybe like help to improve that for them because it's someone that you care about. And I felt like that's not something that I get all the time. And, there are people in my career field at my place of work who are like that as well. But there's something about being in yoga teacher training and going through that. We physically adjust each other. There's that connection emotionally. There's that connection physically. Vulnerability. Yeah, you're totally right. And I feel like I can be real with you guys. And, I've had a really rough past couple of weeks, and I've just been a bitch. Like, I've just been like, and I needed to like disconnect from social media and stuff for a while because I was just so overwhelmed. And you guys were so like positive about it, and you were just like, listen, everybody goes through this. I didn't feel that it was taken personally. And, that's sometimes something that a lot of people, even as adults, and especially a lot of like female friends that I've had in the past, they take it so personally, or they take it to heart in a different way that is not meant or intended. But I feel like we have such a deep connection with each other that regardless of what is going on in the life of one of us, it's just that like there's an understanding, a forgiveness, a grace that is there that I haven't always had with other people. So I'm so grateful for that. And I think that is one particular and important aspect that I, especially over the past couple of weeks, have found that's maybe the answer to why us, that question.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because even talking about like logistically what we were thinking about this podcast, like what exactly we wanted it to be for people, because again, I work in digital marketing, branding, stuff like that. So I'm like leading us through a branding exercise, like what do we want our voice to be, like how do we want to be perceived? And it came down, we really just want to have the genuine, authentic conversations that we're having anyway, and just share that with people, because I know how much value all four of us get from our conversations. I know that other people can as well. And again, it's not prideful or anything, but we have a lot of value and knowledge, especially between the four of us in so many different areas. So we're going to be talking about all these different areas that we want other people to, you can try it, you can dismiss it. Again, you do you. It's totally up to you. But yeah, it's just, we are discussing things that have worked for us, haven't worked for us, and you're welcome to listen in anytime. Well, every other week, I guess, not every.
Yeah, every other week. Yeah.
Every podcast.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the thing that Lindsay touched on, and I think all of us have actually touched on it a little bit, is that I think that we're all very authentic, and we know who we are. But Jordan touched on this specifically about how she's been going through self-growth over the last 3 or 4 years, and you can know who you are and not be complacent. And not just decide,
yes. Oh my gosh.
Not just decide, okay, well, I know who I am now, so this is it. I'm 32 and I'm done growing. I'm not 32. But like I'm 32, I'm done growing. I know who I am. Like all is set, all is well. I'm going to
really
like
specific number.
I know.
Since you're not actually 32. Like, where is she getting this?
But I feel like some people sometimes hit an age and they just stop growing, or they think I'm old enough now. I know who I am. I don't need to grow anymore, or they become complacent, or they just, I don't know, they become content, and
or they don't know where to
go.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've went through a couple stages of that after high school. My husband and I have known each other since we were 11. So I'm obviously not the same person I was when I was 11. I'll be 25 this year, so I think I'm the baby of the podcast, actually. But we've known each other, for 14 years almost. It'll be 14 years in September. And there were points in time that I hated my husband.
September what?
Let's see. It'd be at the beginning of September.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be
Same
at the beginning of September.
September when we first started
Yeah.
dating in high school. Anyway, fun fact.
Fun fact. But, there were points where my husband was there for me at a very emotional, kind of dark time in my life in high school. And then there were times where he was not there for me in very dark, emotional times of my life. And, I was there for him through the same thing and through some not same things. And we have grown. I mean, we grew up together, and we grew apart, and we grew back together, and we grew apart again, and we grew back together again. And I always tell people, I love my husband 99.9% of the time. There's that 1% where I'm like, I would maybe dig a 6-foot hole and put you in it right now. Because nobody's perfect. But I also know my husband so well that I can almost anticipate what he's doing before he even realizes he's doing it. Because we grow, and, I think there's a spot in your time, there's not even necessarily a spot, there's times in your life where you don't grow apart from people on purpose. It's just that it just naturally happens. You have this natural fallout with people. And I don't see that happening with any of you, because we are so authentically ourselves, but we're all so invested in ourselves as well. And it's not a selfish thing, it's a self-care thing. Absolutely. That we are so invested in ourselves that we do give each other the space and the patience to figure our shit out. Yeah. Like, Lindsay's been a little haywire the last 2 weeks. It's okay. Like, she's going through some stuff. She's figuring out some stuff. And the three of us aren't like, damn, what's going on with her? We're giving her that space, and we're giving her that opportunity to explore that, because we know who Lindsay is at her core. And I think that that's that vulnerability thing that Jordan was talking about during yoga teacher training. We were on surface level with each other. Mm-hmm. We got to the point where we knew each other down to our cores. We know our little quirks. We know the things that bug us. We know our little pet peeves. We know the things that really, make us bloom and make us spark and make us happy. Mm-hmm. And it's not a surface level friendship. And I've only known you guys for a year, and I feel like I've known you for 20. Yeah. It's so weird thinking about it. But yeah, looking back, when we had talked about the catalyst, I don't know that there was one point, but that's a big thing for me, is that no matter what, I could have a midlife crisis and you guys would be there, and you guys would get me through it, even if you thought I was crazy, because we know who each other is. We know the other person to the point to where if something happens and you're going through something, we're not like, oh, I don't want to be friends with her because she's acting crazy. We are so just loving and uplifting and caring for one another. And I think going back to having the more meaningful relationships, because we are all so obviously busy, we don't have time for those surface level relationships. We just don't. And so having those really deep relationships with you guys is something I truly appreciate. Yeah.
Give me all the feels, Jeana.
Yeah.
All the feels.
I'll give you all the emotions, pitter patter.
Yeah. Well, that was just a little bit about us, and we would love to hear about you, and we'd love to get to know our listeners. So please reach out to us at hello@flyoveryogispodcast.com. You can also find us on Instagram and on Facebook at Fly Over Yogis, and we would love for you to leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for listening.
Namaste.